Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. I am back with another episode. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message, it reads like this. Hello Brother Nashi, can you please post for me a hidden identity? I have my own story that I want to share with you. I have some ritual items that were given to me by one traditional healer, and as someone who grew up in an environment whereby at our family house there were people who would come each and every Sunday to our family house so as to worship the Lord, because at our family house there was this other room that was actually dedicated by my father as a gift to the church, which we attended when we were growing up. And never, even I never for a single day ever suspected that my father and my mother were involved in money-making rituals. These rituals that my father and my mother did are called money-casting rituals. My brother, people used to come to our house so as to attend church services, but yet my father and my mother, they were involved in all of these rituals. The day that I found out that my parents were ritualists, it was the day that they had gone out to this other shopping area. The shopping area was around a place that is called Zindoga shopping area. That was when something strange drew me into my parents' bedroom. When my parents' bedroom had gotten my attention, I then walked towards my parents' bedroom. When I walked into my parents' bedroom, I then noticed that on the floor, on top of the carpet, there was a red cloth. That red cloth was just lying there on the floor on top of the carpet, and there were 3 candles. These candles, they were yellow in color, and these candles, they were burning whilst they were placed in form of an imaginary triangle. I stood there in the bedroom, and I was in a state of shock and fear as I stood there because of the things that I had seen. When I stood there, I then saw that this red cloth that was lying on top of the carpet, it was as if it was moving, as if this red cloth had been laid on top of a flowing river. This thing was quite strange to me. I then noticed that there was something that was there on top of that red cloth. There was money. The money was just appearing from nowhere, my brother. This money that was appearing from nowhere, it was in form of dollar bills. These dollar bills, they were $100 Zim bills that used to be there back in those days when the economy was still fully functional. These $100 bills, when they would mysteriously appear from underneath that red cloth that seemed to be moving like it was placed on top of the water, those $100 bills, they would be wet as if they had been pulled out of the water. But as soon as they had been placed on top of that red cloth, they would all dry up within a few seconds, and those banknotes will be piled up on that red cloth. Then they will all be arranged into bundles and tied together by an unseen hand, and the bundles of money would then immediately disappear. That hand that kept on sorting out the money, I didn't even see it, but from the movement that was happening on that red cloth that was laid on top of the carpet, one could actually see that there was something that was controlling the money, because the money kept on being arranged into bundles. As I was standing in my parents' bedroom, then there was a sudden whirlwind that came and rushed into that room that I was standing in. And from that whirlwind, they spoke a voice, and this voice that spoke, I noticed that it was the voice of my father, for it was very familiar. And the voice was sounding as if it had came from the center of that whirlwind that had came rushing into my parents' bedroom. The voice then said to me, "My son, me and your mother, we have seen what you have seen in our bedroom, but please, my son, do not be afraid of what you have seen, because right now as we are speaking, we are rushing back home so as to be with you, and we can explain the situation to you. My father's voice that was speaking through the whirlwind then said to me, my son, can you please close the door so that your siblings won't see this thing that you have seen in our bedroom? Then everything went quiet. I stood there after the voice had spoken from inside the wind, and I was in shock, trying to understand everything that had happened. And in no time, when I was still trying to understand what had been going on in my parents' bedroom, that was when I heard the sound of my father's Toyota Cressida pulling into the driveway, and my father had one of those loud boosters on the exhaust of his Toyota Cressida. And back in those days, no one in our neighborhood had that kind of a car. So whenever my father would be driving around, we would all know that this was my father who was driving, because he was the only one who had that kind of a Toyota Cressida that was fitted with a very loud booster. So when I had that car driving into our driveway, I then immediately knew that it was my mother and father who had returned back home. My father was in such a hurry that he left his car still idling when it was parked there in the driveway, and they both rushed to the bedroom where they found me. Then they started explaining what had happened to me. My father, as he spoke with me, said that way back they had this other tenant of theirs who was not a Zimbabwean by birth. Then this tenant of theirs started helping my father and gave my father some charms so as to use for his businesses. He said, look, these charms that I have given you, when you have had enough and when you have made enough money from these charms, then you have the freedom to throw away all of these charms that I have given you, no strings attached. I then asked my father why he had all of these charms, yet he had a thriving business. My father then said to me that his business was nothing but a front, so that people won't be suspicious that he was a ritualist. The kind of a business that my father had back in those days was that he sold river sand and pit sand, the one that is used for building. He had those old Nissan long-nosed tipper trucks that used to be very popular in those days. Then he had one of the long base trucks that he also used for hiring. So the more that I questioned my father about all of these trucks, why he was not using those trucks so as to make money, he then said to me, my son, my trucks have been operating at a loss for a very long time. And he said to me, if I had only relied on the money that was being brought by these trucks, then I wasn't going to be able to take you to all of these expensive private schools, because at that time, me and my siblings, we all went to private schools that were only for the rich. When my father passed away, he had returned all of his casting charms. So when my father passed away as the firstborn, then all of my father's businesses and trucks were left in my name. And this thing, it caused a lot of trouble between me and my father's younger brother. There was a very big fight between me and my father's relatives, because they thought that all of my father's riches came from his trucks. But little did they know that my father did a ritual that involved money casting. So they kept on fighting for my inheritance, and me not wanting to fight over this inheritance that had been left behind by my father. I then gave everything to my father's younger brother, since he was the one who was always bad-mouthing me. But without any charms backing him, all of the trucks stopped working, and my father's little empire collapsed soon after his death. After this, I had already told myself that if you want to be rich in this world, you can never be rich in this world using any natural means of searching for money. So I started going around to different places looking for any healer that could offer me assistance, like making me rich instantly. and I used a lot of money until I found one who was willing to help me, or let me say, one who ended up cursing me. From the very first day that I arrived at that traditional healer's homestead, I was told that in order for me to become rich, I had to be cooked inside something that looked like a very big clay pot. This clay pot was always placed on top of red burning coals. It was a very painful thing to do, but if I ever wanted to become rich, this is what I was supposed to do. So what these people would do is that at this healer's homestead, there was this other place where there was this ever-burning fire. So they would regularly remove the coals that had gone cold. Then they would replace them with burning red coals so as to keep this clay pot hot at all the times. When I was instructed to get in there, it felt very hot, but I was told that the steam that would come out of that clay pot, when it would mix with my sweat, then the rituals would have begun. After the rituals were done, I was told that I had to buy a house, and this house that I was going to buy, I had to use the money that I would have gotten from these rituals that I had recently performed, and that was what I did, my brother. After I had gotten my first paycheck, I went ahead and I purchased my property, which is my house even up until today. That traditional healer had told me that after I had bought my property, I had to choose a room which I was supposed to sanctify, and I was supposed to make that room a holy room where I would keep all of my ritual items. So in this room, my brother, what I do is that I keep one of those ritualistic items in form of an altar. Then there is a knife that was given to me by that traditional healer. This knife that was given to me by that traditional healer, it is in form of a hunting knife, and there are those ones that come with a wooden casing. So this hunting knife, you cannot see the blade as such when you pull it out of its wooden casing, because it was designed in such a way that it has a lot of small fabrics covering the blade, and most of these fabrics that are covering that hunting knife's blade, they are all red in color. So what I was instructed to do is that if I ever feel that in my business things are not going okay, what I do is that I get into that holy room and I will start to stab an imaginary person that will be in the air. And when I am done stabbing that imaginary person that will be in the air, then I will see that on that hunting knife's blade there will be blood. I don't even know where this blood that will be dripping on that hunting knife's blade comes from, but that hunting knife's blade will be full of blood, and I don't even know where it comes from. That traditional healer then told me that there was a very important rule that I should always remember. That rule, my brother, he told me that I should always follow until the day that I am going to die. So this rule that I have to follow goes on like this. I am not allowed to sleep in my own house, neither am I allowed to purchase another house in my own home country. So what I do is that I occasionally park just outside and I sleep in my own car, or what I do is that I can plan a very long road trip going nowhere so that I can just keep on driving. Most of the times I can even drive throughout the night so that I can just sleep in my car. That traditional healer told me that since the property that I bought using that ritualistic money has a room that is more like a holy room where I keep those ritualistic items that give me money, so I am not fit to sleep in that same house. That is why, my brother, I sleep in my car. If it all gets too much for me, like there are times when I feel like I am going crazy, what I do is that I go to my favorite vacation places, which are in Durban, South Africa, and Cape Town, or here in the UK where I am currently staying, so that I can live a normal life just for a few months. Because back home, once I step my feet back home, there is no peace for me whatsoever. If I feel like I want to be with a woman, most of the women that I can be with are those ones that are called the ladies of the night. What I do is that I can just hire one of them, then I will sleep with them in my car. After she had offered me their services, then she would just get out of my car. This is the kind of a life that I am living, Brother Nashi. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our dear brothers who was saying that currently he is in the United Kingdom where he is on his vacation. Here, strange things do happen in this world. Do you want to go on a vacation using blood money? You were saying that one of my favorite places to go on a vacation is in Durban or in Cape Town. I just imagine that you will be a lady there in Durban, then you come across this man at a very expensive hotel or an expensive restaurant or maybe by the beach, and you tell yourself that finally I have met the man of my dreams, not knowing that these are the rules that our dear brother is to follow. Strange things do happen in this world.